Hello, everyone. This is Module 1, Lesson 2. So Lesson 1.2. And it was great getting to chat with you, although I didn't get to see you in the last video, introducing the course a little bit. Now I'm moving on to Module 1.2. So it's the second lesson of the first module. And today we are talking about what is short-term missions. The course is called Exploring Short-Term Missions, so I think it's probably logical. It is logical to ask the question, what exactly is short-term missions? And I'm going to try to go ahead and make this as simple as possible. For us, short-term missions is defined by the length of the service, not someone's age or other components. It's more the length of the service. I know when we look at Christianity at large, they really look at short-term missions as being 2 years or less. So anything that's 2 years or less, they kind of want to look at how do we in the United Pentecostal Church International, as one of the major apostolic groups, how is it that we look at short-term missions? You'll notice very quickly, even with the title of this course, ESTM, that we don't spell it out every time and say short-term missions, short-term missions. We call it STM. For us within the UPCI, it used to be called AIM, but we grew to such a place with the short-term missions programs that we have multiple pathways to the harvest now. So not just the AIM program, not just one program, but multiple ways that you can get to the mission field and accomplish goals with short-term missions. So when we look at short-term missions with purpose, we are bringing that down to a predetermined length of time. We look at it as purposely limited, organized, cross-cultural mission efforts for a predetermined length of time without participants making a residency-based commitment of more than 2 years. So someone going on the short-term missions program, they're not necessarily saying that they're called to missions for the rest of their lives. They're saying that they are going to go ahead and try it out. They're going to go ahead and give a year, give 3 months, give 6 months, give 9 months, give 2 years, and consider a lifetime. So we call that STM. You would say, well, how can you make the difference, or how do you tell the difference between short-term missions and career missions, or short-term and long-term missions? Well, it comes down to the length that is involved. So within the UPCI, short-term missions is anything that's from 2 weeks to 1 year, and it's renewable. So 2 weeks to a year, and there are various types of programs that we'll discuss in our course later on. So stick with us, not later on today, so don't get nervous, later on in the course. So we define it according to the length. And we can also tell a short-term missions course because we look at short-term missionaries as independent contractors rather than per se employees of the UPCI. So when it comes to tax time, any money that's released from here that was raised by the short-term missionary is put on a 1099 as personal income. When it comes to career missions, the long-term missions, they are considered to be more like the employees. So short-term missions, independent contractors, it's according to the length of service, 2 weeks to 1 year, it's renewable. The income is put on a 1099, but with our career missionaries, the length involved is typically a lifetime of service, or we look at it in increments of 5 years. So every 5 years, there's a little bit of a reassessment that goes on, not too much. Missionaries come home every 5 years, they attend General Conference, School of Missions, and they do deputation. During their time of service, their income is placed on a W-2. So that's one of the ways that we're able to tell the difference between short-term missions and career missions. Some have asked this question, is short-term missions a trend of UPCI global missions? And I would say, no, not really. It's not really a trend. When you see trends develop, there are at least 3 things that you can do about a trend. You can fight against the trend, you can flow with the trend and be like everybody else, or you can develop your own trend. So guess what we want to do with short-term missions, global missions? You've got it right. I wish I was there in the classroom so that I could hear you with my own ears, but you're right. We want to develop our own trend. So with short-term missions, we want everyone, or as many people as possible, to be involved in the fulfillment of the Great Commission, going, praying, giving. We want as many people as possible to go. But the length of time that they stay is given over to a number of factors in the will of God and the call of God. And so we do short-term missions so that we can consider long-term missions. If you look at the missionary map of the UPCI, you can see that we have an aging missionary population. Thank God for every one of them. But we're trying to mobilize and mentor the next generation of missionaries for the apostolic movement. So we have chosen to develop our own trend, and that's for the maximum benefit of kingdom expansion. And that brings us very quickly to the close of this particular lesson. And keep in mind that you should be looking at Module 1, 1.1, 1.2, moving on to 1.3, taking a look at those particular lessons, doing the readings that you see there, and preparing yourself for a checkpoint. And the checkpoint will not happen in week number 1 of your class. We're going to go ahead and push that over to week number 2. So these 2 particular videos and what you see there on Moodle, that's the extent that we're going to go ahead and cover this particular week. Thank you for joining us for exploring short-term missions. Appreciate you until we get the opportunity to meet again in exploring short-term missions. God bless.